Hello everyone, welcome back to Automation E2E. In this tutorial, we'll dive into one of the most powerful features of Selenium WebDriver, the Actions class. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of what the Action class is, why we need it, how to perform different mouse and keyboard actions using it with step-by-step examples, and I'll also share some interview pointers you must know. This is the part 1 of Actions class series where we'll focus on mouse and keyboard actions. In the part 2, we'll cover drag and drop actions in details. So, let's get started. Before jumping in right away, let's think about how we interact with the computer. We don't just click buttons, send keys. We also perform actions like hover our mouse over a menu, right click for options, double click to open a file, or use keyboard shortcuts like Ctrl C, Ctrl V to copy paste. Web applications also need the same advanced interactions, and that's where Selenium's action class comes into the play. The Actions class in Selenium is a part of the interactions package provided by Selenium. It is used to handle complex user gestures and interactions that go beyond simple click or send keys operations. Now, let's have a look at how to use it. Now, to use Actions class, all you have to do is create an object of Actions class. So the way you do it is actions is equal to new actions. So it has imported Actions class from interactions package provided by Selenium. And here you have to provide the driver. Now you can right away use the methods provided by Actions class. Let's quickly have a look at the methods that it has. For that, let's do action start. Here you can see there is moveToElement method. This is used in hover over use cases wherein you just have to move your cursor to a particular element. Click, as it says, just to click on a particular element. moveToElement, this is the same method as this one. It has additional 2 parameters. If you want your cursor to be a little left or little right, depending upon the offset, you can give that offset here. Then you have click and hold. Here it's a little different from the traditional click method. Herein it'll click and it'll hold that element. This is the same as click and hold. You can just additionally add a target element. Context click is basically right click, double click as it says, clicks twice. Drag and drop, here you can have a source element and a target element. So what it'll do is it'll drag the source element to the target element's position. So there are n number of methods like keyUp, keyDown to mimic keyboard actions. Release method, like once you do click and hold, you also would have to release it at some point. So to release that, you can use this release method. Scroll by amount. So this is another way to scroll the web page. So basically all these methods are some of the advanced interactions that a user might perform with the UI. Now, let's write a program to see how we can handle mouse over action using actions class. To explain you what is mouse hover, let me take you to this Flipkart site wherein if I go on this fashion icon, you can see this menu has popped up. If I remove this mouse cursor from here, it disappears. Similarly, if I mouse hover other options, here the other subcategories will pop up. So these kind of drop downs wherein I'm not performing any actions like click or anything else. So I'm simply keeping my cursor above that particular element and the menu is popping up. Similarly here, this is another example. So in this approach, let's first see if traditional click methods work, and if they won't work, let's see how the actions class will actually help you to solve any problem that we come across. For that, what we'll do is we'll write a program to first click on fashion, then click on bags and suitcases, and then click on maybe let's say duffel bag. Okay, now let's get back to IntelliJ, and I've already written a program without using actions class here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the fashions icon, then I'm going to click on the bags and suitcases option, and then I'll click on the duffel bag. Now, getting the XPath for fashion web element is pretty straightforward, but in case you want to find XPath for the elements that appear once you hover over something, it becomes a little trickier to find the XPath. So one way I have done in this case is I've just simply used the visible text that was there on the UI and I've added that here, but it can happen that there can be other elements which have the same text. In that case, you won't be able to do this. So let me show you a small trick to get XPath of elements that appear after hovering over certain elements. Let me right click here, inspect, and why I'm saying that it is tricky is if you go here and let's say you want to access the XPath of this bag, suitcases, and luggages option. I'll go here, and before I reach here, the options that were displayed here are gone. So it can be very frustrating to deal with such things, but I'll show you a very simple trick that will solve the issue. What you have to do is you just simply have to hover over on fashion. Let's say you want XPath for this one. Carefully come down here to the source section of the tab, and here you will find an option to pause script execution. Select that, and then you can see that the UI has been paused. Go back to the elements, click on inspect, and clicks on bags and bag, suitcase, and luggages, and from here you can simply copy the XPath, or you can write your own custom XPath. So similar thing you can do for duffel bag as well. Like you can resume it, you can go here. As you can see, the duffel bag has been displayed on the UI. Carefully come down, pause the execution, go back to the elements, and inspect the duffel bag. So this is a simple trick that you can use. Now let's come back to IntelliJ. I'll add thread.sleep before clicking every element so that you can see the execution happening. So let's see if this program works without the use of action class. Now let me run this program and see how it works. Okay, the browser's launched. It has clicked on fashions. It has clicked on bags and luggage. And now you can see, instead of clicking on duffel bags, since there's bags and luggage was already a link, Selenium simply executed this click command, because of which the duffel bag link was never on the UI, and the website moved to bags and luggages section. And as you can see here, you got a no such element exception. So this is the exact use case where mouse over or move to element method of actions class come in handy to handle this kind of links. So to solve this issue, all you have to do is, as discussed earlier, you have to create actions class object, and for this particular element you'll have to use actions.moveToElement, and here you have to provide the web element. In this case, this is the web element. Let me create a separate object for submenu, and let's pass this here. Now, just doing actions.moveToElement won't work. To actually execute it, you'll also have to add perform here. So now let's execute this program and see how the mouse over works. Site's open, let's go to fashion, hover over duffel bags, and there you are. You have reached the duffel bag section. So that's how actions class moveToElement method solved this mouse over problem. So you can use it in multiple use cases. So wherever the simple click is not working, or basically you don't have to click on an element, you just have to mouse over an element. You can follow these steps and use the moveToElement method to perform mouse over action using Selenium's action class. Now let's have a look at how we can perform double click action using actions class. For that, we'll be using this website. Let me copy the URL. Here you have this click me button, wherein if you click it once, the counter will increment with 1, and if you click it twice, the counter will increment by 2. So let's use this website here. Let me remove the previous code. Now, instead of directly calling web elements, now we are going to do is we're going to create a by object going forward, by XPath. All right, so let's name this as click me button. Let's copy the XPath for this. And now let's perform double click, and let's give driver find element by click me button, and we'll do dot perform. So once we do that, let's also validate this text of click count. So let's get the XPath of this count. So by click count is equal to by dot XPath. We paste the XPath here, and driver dot find element count dot get text should be exactly equal to 2, since we are double clicking here, and let's add it in an if condition for now. So if it is true, I'll have to do dot equals. We're going to display double click was performed, else we'll display test failed. All right, now let's see how this double click method works, and let's run this program and see how it works. So as you can see, the above link was clicked twice, and here double click was performed. So that is how actions class performs double click. Similarly, if you want to perform right click, all you have to do is actions dot context click and dot perform. And let's wait for some time here so that we can see that right click was performed. So the double click was performed and the right click was also performed. As you can see, since the cursor was here, the right click was performed at this point itself. So that is how you can perform right click using the context click method that is provided by actions class. Now let's write a code to understand how we can use Selenium's actions class in order to mimic things that we do using keyboard. For that, let's go to the website practice test automation. Herein, what we will do is we'll double click on this student text, Control C and copy it, paste it in the username section. Similarly, we'll do the same for the password, copy, paste. And then we click on submit. And once we log in, we'll validate that this text is present here. Alright, so I've already taken the XPath for the username text box, the password text box, and the username text that is there on the UI that we want to copy, the password that is present on the UI that we want to copy. So as you can see, I've already created an object of actions class, and let's utilize that here. So actions dot. Now we will first have to double click on the username. So for that, I'll have driver dot find element, and we'll be using username. Alright, so once we double click on the username, I have to press the control key. For that, I'll do keyDown. So keyDown will basically press the user key, and then we'll use this keyZenum that is provided by Selenium, which we can use to mimic all the keys from the keyboard. So I'll do keys.control. By doing this, the control key from the keyboard would be pressed, and then I'll just simply send keys, and first I have to copy, so I'll just do a C. Once that's done, I'll also have to up the key, otherwise it'll keep it pressed, again the control key. After that, I do a perform. Alright, so once we copy it, we'll have to paste it into the text box. For that, we'll do actions dot. First, we'll click on that username text box, driver dot find element, and by would be the username text box. There you go. And then once we click on that, we will have to again do a key down for keys dot control, and then we'll send keys as v. keyUp will release the control key, and finally we'll do a perform. Alright, so this will basically copy the username and paste it in the username text box. Now let's copy this code, because this code would be similar for the password field. So instead of this, I'll have a password here, and instead of username text box, I'll have a password text box here. There you go. We're all set. Now all we have to do is driver dot find element by, let's go to the UI and let's get the XPath for this submit button. So it has our ID submit, and once we submit it, system dot out dot XPath. Let's inspect this and copy the XPath for this one. So we get the XPath, we'll just simply print the text. We'll have to do a click here, and once we paste the username, let's add a thread.sleep so that we can see the execution. Alright, let's run this program. The website's launched, the username is copied, and the password is also copied. It has clicked on submitted, and the test is successful. Let's go back to the IDE, and you can see that the login was successful. Now, a couple of things here. The keyZenum that Selenium has provided, if you go in here, it'll have all the keyboard keys that you need. So with the combination of these keys and actions class, you can basically perform keyboard actions. So before we conclude this video, I want you to understand 2 points that are crucial for your understanding and also from interview perspective. These are, what is the difference between actions class and action interface? And the second is when to use perform and when to use build.perform. So both of these questions would be clear with the following example. Let's first have a look at basics. Actions class is basically a class that has all the implementation of the methods, and that's something we have used so far. Action, on the other hand, is an interface that only has one method, that is perform. Now moving on to the methods, the perform method is executed in such a way that it will build and execute immediately whatever you have changed so far. Now let's get back to IntelliJ, and this is the example of how we have used perform so far. We have directly used it in our code, and if I go to this implementation, you can see that it is doing the two operations, that is build and perform. So we don't have to explicitly mention build in our code here. On the other hand, when we use build.perform, we are breaking these actions. So here the build creates a composite action object containing the entire chain of actions, and perform then executes that composite action. This is useful when you want to reuse the same action sequence multiple times or store the build action in a variable. This will be more clear to you with this example. Now, I'm back to IntelliJ, and here, if you remember the program we wrote just a while back, we are copying the username and we are going to paste it in the username text box. Now I'll just remove all this code from here. And now let's say I don't just want to paste it once, I want to paste it 3 to 4 times. Now, how do I do that? So in normal use case, I would have to copy paste this method multiple times, or I'll create a separate method for this and call it. So that's one of the things that we can do. Another option that we can do is we can just, instead of doing perform directly, we can do a build here. As we saw, this build method would create a composite action object. Like if I go here, this returns an instance of action, and if I see this, action is an interface. Now if I go back, now here I would have to store it in action. Let's name it as act, and let me import it, and you can see it's imported. It's again present in the interactions package of Selenium. Now using this act, I can use this particular action any number of times. Like let me do it after this. We do is this act dot perform. Let me add a 1 second sleep and just repeat this particular action 3 times. Now what we have done here is we have segregated the building part and the performing part, and if you see what perform this method is, this is something from the actions class, and if you go to the implementations, there are basically 2 implementations. And if I go to one of them, as you can see, this is a inner class, and here we're not building it. This is not the perform that we called earlier. The perform that we called earlier was this one, wherein it had built. On the other hand, this perform will simply execute the action. That's the difference when we do build.perform and when we simply do perform. Now let's execute this program and see how it works. There you go. It's copied it. It has pasted it 3 times. Hope this example makes things clear for you. If you have any questions, do drop them in the comment section. That's it from this tutorial. In the part 2 of this tutorial, you'll learn how to perform drag and drop using actions class. If you found this video helpful, do like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's a small click for you, but it really helps the channel grow. Thank you so much for watching.